Tonight, from the United Nations, Donald Trump takes aim and lashes out.
Your countries are going to hell.
For nearly an hour, the U.S. president goes on a tirade in front of world leaders.
If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail.
As Trump criticizes the UN, we break down whether it's still living up to its promise. Jimmy Kimmel returns to late night days after being pulled off the air. And what CBC News has learned about the future of Marineland's famous belugas and where they could go next.
It's not as simple as just calling up FedEx and say, hey, I've got a shipment for you. Overnight, please.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrienne Arsenault at the United Nations in New York.
Thanks for joining us here at the United Nations as the world gathers and Donald Trump takes center stage. The theme of this 80th UN General Assembly is Better Together, but in a 56-minute-long speech dripping with self-praise and boastful claims, Trump took sharp aim at this institution and many of its member countries. He targeted migration and green energy, the recognition of a Palestinian state, and the state of the UN building itself. He chided the group for being ineffective, but also later signaled support. And the list goes on. Off that stage, the news keeps coming. We will dig into Trump's shift in tone on Ukraine in a minute. But first, Chris Reyes takes us into that moment and that room as the U.S. president grabbed the world's attention.
Donald Trump's return to the United Nations got off to a bumpy start. This broken escalator working its way into his grievances at the podium.
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle.
For nearly an hour, Trump bounced between lecturing world leaders
Your countries are going to hell.
and offering to help fix their problems, urging them to enforce strict borders and abandon green policies.
If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail.
And he admonished countries like Canada that recognize the Palestinian state.
The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities.
But some of his sharpest criticisms were for the UN itself.
Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve.
Trump's speech vastly different from the Secretary General's, who opened the UN's 80th session defending its purpose.
The United Nations has never been more essential. The world needs our unique legitimacy, our convening power.
And also rallying the world to champion clean energy.
Excellencies, fossil fuels are a losing bet.
The clashing of those ideas clear. But when the two leaders sat down for a meeting right after their speeches, a stark change in tone.
We are entirely at your disposal to be able to work together for a just peace in the world, based on our common values.
Our country is behind the United Nations 100%. I think the potential of the United Nations is incredible, really incredible. It can do so much, so I'm behind it. I may disagree with it sometimes, but I am so behind it.
So, Chris, you were among a select group, very small group of UN reporters who were in the room when Trump and Guterres sat down. What was that like?
You know what I saw in there, Adrienne, is President Trump making a point of projecting American power. He had his Secretary of State, his new UN ambassador, his chief of staff, and his chief negotiator in the Middle East sitting next to him in that meeting. Now, that said, Trump says that he's putting that power behind the United Nations, and that just doesn't track. He's pulled out of UN agencies. The U.S. owes more than $1 billion in contributions. He's dismissed decisions by the international courts. What to do about that? That room was full of reporters. We tried to get those questions in, but we were very quickly shuffled out.
I don't doubt that for a second. All right, Chris, thank you. And Trump is making headlines here for another reason tonight, his policy whiplash on Russia's war with Ukraine. As Evan Dyer explains, Trump now says he thinks Ukraine can win and then some.
President Trump's first address to the United Nations General Assembly in 5 years came with an abrupt shift in tone on Russia's war in Ukraine.
It's not making Russia look good. It's making them look bad. It shows you what leadership is, what bad leadership can do to a country.
Not only harsh words for Russian President Vladimir Putin, but also kind ones for Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky.
He's a brave man, and he's putting up one hell of a fight.
And the change in posture went beyond mere pleasantries.
Mr. President, do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
But Trump saved the biggest surprise for his Truth Social account, saying, "I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form." He had been suggesting Ukraine would have to give up large parts of its territory to end the war. In that same post, Trump suggested Ukraine could maybe even go further, seizing parts of Russia, something the Ukrainian government has never shown any interest in. Prime Minister Mark Carney said Trump's remarks were a reaction to Putin's behavior.
He's testing NATO, multiple countries, multiple times. He's stolen children. And so I understand the president's tone today and his comments today.
The issue of Ukrainian children taken by Russia during this war was a major part of Carney's agenda Tuesday.
Thanks, Canada. Thank you, Mark, for your strong leadership.
Canada is leading jointly with Ukraine an effort to recover some 20,000 children taken into Russia.
Russian soldiers have entered classrooms and forcibly rounded up children, taking them to Russian schools and orphanages.
Today, Canada pledged funds for an AI tracking system to try to find those children. As for Trump's comments, Ukraine and allies will have to determine if they really represent a new direction in policy or just more freestyling from a president who might change his mind again tomorrow. Evan Dyer, CBC News, New York.
As President Trump took aim at the institution of the United Nations, earlier we spoke to outgoing Canadian Ambassador Bob Rae about what the critics of the UN get right and what they get wrong.
So there's a lot that we can do to make the UN run more efficiently.
Later in the hour, we will dive into what those changes could be to make this 80-year-old global body more effective in today's world. We can now show you what happened when Jimmy Kimmel returned to television tonight. Disney pulled him off the air last week, prompting praise from some, uproar from others. Lindsay Duncombe now with how Kimmel is finally breaking his silence.
From Hollywood, it's Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Jimmy Kimmel's return to late night was emotional.
It was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do.
He focused much of his monologue on the importance of free speech.
This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this.
Just before the show aired, President Donald Trump posted, "I can't believe ABC fake news gave Jimmy Kimmel his job back," adding, "I think we're going to test ABC out on this." Trump referred to the multi-million-dollar settlement with the network last year, saying this one sounds more lucrative. Kimmel was taken off the air by ABC parent company Disney after these comments on the killing of Charlie Kirk.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
The suspension became a flashpoint over free speech in America, people canceling Disney and Hulu subscriptions.
I hope that Bob Iger and the rest of the executives at Disney have seen this protest and that they've been moved by it.
Disney said it reinstated the show after thoughtful conversations with the star, but that doesn't mean everyone can see it. Two groups, Sinclair and Nexstar, which control about a quarter of ABC affiliates in the U.S., will continue to preempt the show.
Both Sinclair and Nexstar want to get larger. And in order to get consolidation, in order to be able to buy more stations, they need FCC approval.
And the Trump-appointed FCC chair has threatened consequences for networks.
I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
It's under that pressure that Kimmel takes the stage tonight.
Maybe if I catch my breath.
One of his guests, Canadian superstar Sarah McLachlan, who canceled a performance at the premiere of her Lilith Fair documentary airing on Disney Plus in support of free speech. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Prime Minister says he still has confidence in his public safety minister, who was caught in a leaked recording appearing to question the effectiveness of the Liberals' gun buyback program. The same program he announced was expanding today. But as Kate McKenna tells us, there are now calls for the minister to lose his job.
You don't seem to have confidence in this program.
For the governing Liberals, the expansion of the gun buyback program was supposed to be good news.
I have absolute confidence in this program.
But the public safety minister spent the day defending himself. In a conversation recorded without his knowledge with a firearm owner, he appeared to undercut his own government's gun buyback program.
Don't ask me to explain the logic to you on this, okay? Like, it's the problem, Gary. I realize that.
Implying the push to confiscate banned weapons won't be enforced.
I just don't think municipal police services have the resources to do this.
Even hinting the program is about politics.
And this is something that very much a big deal for many of the Quebec electorate that voted for us.
The conversation was released by the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights.
They all tell the truth when they think no one is listening. So I think he just confirmed everything that most Canadians who have been paying attention knew already.
One of Canada's most well-known gun control advocates is now a member of federal cabinet. She lent support to her colleague.
You see it today. We are all here together with the minister.
But the opposition leader is calling for the minister to lose his job.
On Monday, a minister says that his program won't work. On Tuesday, he says he's going ahead with the program. When will the Prime Minister fire this minister?
And Enda Sangari says for now he's focused on seeing the program through.
The audio was leaked, but I'm resolved to do my job. This is what I've been tasked by the Prime Minister.
I have confidence in the minister. He's doing important work. He's got a lot of important work this session of Parliament, including legislation on borders and others.
The expansion of the program will include a pilot project in Cape Breton to buy back banned weapons from individuals there. Federal officials hope to expand it nationally sometime this fall. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
The grieving family of a Quebec teenager is demanding to know why police shot and killed the 15-year-old on Sunday. As Sarah Levitt tells us, we're hearing from the independent agency now investigating in a rare news conference.
A father's anguish after his 15-year-old son was shot and killed by police on Montreal's South Shore. He says his son Nouran was always smiling and welcoming. He's the victim. He's a baby, he says. It happened Sunday afternoon in this residential neighborhood. Longueuil police say they received a 911 call from a resident about a group of masked and possibly armed people. It all happened so quickly, says Johnny Ithasoon, who describes seeing it from his kitchen window. He says 2 officers arrived and yelled twice at a group of teens leaving the scene to stop. He says an officer quickly pulled out his gun, shooting Nouran.
We received from the public 7 video of the event.
The independent agency that investigates incidents when someone is injured or killed by police in Quebec held a rare news conference. The head of the agency says its investigators recovered ski masks, a baseball bat, and the police officer's gun, the only firearm at the scene.
We're going to gather the evidence. You have to trust us. We're the one who are doing the investigation. We're an independent office.
Rezai's family, though, wants answers, and soon they've hired a lawyer to help.
Using a lethal force means that the police officer fears for their life. They are in danger. So that's one of the things that raises, I think, the biggest question. Why was lethal force used against Nouran?
Police say the officer who shot the boy is now on leave. Instead of welcoming his son home Sunday night after a day with friends, Sharif had to go to the hospital to identify his body. A nightmare he won't ever forget. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
In British Columbia, the RCMP arrested and then released 2 people at an ostrich farm that has been fighting a cull order for months. On Monday, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency served a warrant on the property to take control of nearly 400 ostriches that have been ordered culled after a portion of the flock was infected with avian flu. The farm's co-owner and her daughter were arrested after refusing to leave the ostrich enclosure. Supporters of the farm say the birds are now healthy and want the ostriches tested for the disease again. Well, the owners of a home where a swastika was mowed into the front lawn are now facing criminal charges. Police were called to the house near St. Thomas, Ontario, earlier this month to investigate a neighbor dispute. The two homeowners are now facing several charges, including public incitement of hate and criminal harassment. And a group of Canadian privacy watchdogs say TikTok hasn't done nearly enough to keep kids off its platform and has even collected sensitive data from Canadian users under the age of 13. Nish Patel now on the company's response and the concern from parents.
A couple Red Bulls. Have you ever had a Red Bull? I never had a Red Bull before.
Despite measures to keep them off, hundreds of thousands of Canadian kids are still finding their way onto TikTok.
TikTok must do more to keep underage children off its platform.
A joint 2-year investigation by several Canadian privacy watchdogs finding that TikTok has been collecting sensitive personal information of users younger than 13 years old.
This data is being used to target the content and ads that users see, which can have harmful impacts, particularly on youth.
In response, TikTok has agreed to beef up its age verification to keep underage users off the platform. It will also improve communication about how it collects data. In a statement, TikTok said, "While we disagree with some of the findings, we remain committed to maintaining strong transparency and privacy practices." But experts say many kids who want to find a way to use TikTok will.
And that in many respects speaks to the need to ensure that the core rules that the company abides by are fit for purpose and appropriate.
Other platforms also attract kids from Instagram to Snapchat. Yet Canada's privacy legislation is more than 2 decades old and is largely designed for a pre-digital era.
I think this really speaks to a need to revise that privacy legislation and potentially make something more specific for minors like other countries have done, like the UK or in the European Union.
It all has some parents concerned.
I don't like my kids being on the TikTok or any of the social media platform like that.
I want more safeguards in place, so I'm really happy that they're looking at this more seriously now.
I will do everything in my power to prevent it from being on social media as long as possible.
Despite TikTok's pledge to change, many agree there's still more work to do. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
CBC News has learned about a potential plan to move whales out of Canada from an amusement park in Ontario.
It's not as simple as just calling up FedEx to say, hey, I've got a shipment for you overnight, please.
Concern about the well-being of the whales. Next. Plus, a new coalition looking to tackle bank scams.
I think refunds for customers should be front and center.
Why some say it falls short on protecting victims. And later, when France's president was blocked by traffic in New York, he thought he would work his connections to clear the way.
Guess what? I'm waiting the street because everything is frozen for you.
His call with Donald Trump. We're back in 2. Several UK charities have cut ties with Sarah Ferguson, Prince Andrew's ex-wife. This after British newspapers published an email she reportedly sent to Jeffrey Epstein in 2011. In it, she describes him as a, quote, supreme friend and appears to privately apologize for publicly denouncing him.
Justice was served, and we'll see what happens. But I very much appreciate the judge and jury.
And that is Donald Trump reacting to a man found guilty of attempting to assassinate him. Well, he played golf in Florida last year. 59-year-old Ryan Ruth reportedly tried to stab himself in the neck after the verdict was read, but court officials stopped him. Ruth will be sentenced in December. He faces a possibility of life in prison. And CBC News has learned Marineland could soon move its 30 beluga whales out of the country. The Ontario Amusement Park has applied for federal export permits. Katie Nicholson now with why that is raising some concern and who may be interested in buying the belugas.
The crowns may be gone, but the belugas are still here, although that could soon change. A federal government source with knowledge of the file confirmed to CBC News that Marineland, Canada has applied to the government for permission to export its remaining 30 beluga whales.
The whale shark exhibit tank has a volume of 22.7 million liters of salt water.
China's Chimelong Ocean Kingdom, one of the world's largest oceanariums, told CBC News it's still trying to decide whether or not to buy the whales from the amusement park. In 2019, Canada outlawed keeping whales and dolphins in captivity for breeding or entertainment. Exporting them requires federal approval. Animal rights advocates see this as a test of that law.
The federal government can't grant those permits unless it's in the best interests of the whales for them to be exported.
That's going to be up to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Minister Joanne Thompson acknowledged the request.
It's on my desk. I will make the decision shortly, and it will absolutely speak to the health of the whales.
It's not as simple as just calling up FedEx and say, hey, I've got a shipment for you, overnight please. A lot of planning has to go into it.
Marine biologist Andrew Treitz says the whales need their blood work and records assessed.
The animal must be healthy. You cannot send off a sick animal that could either die en route or spread disease. So they have to have a clean bill of health.
Marineland didn't respond to numerous requests for comment about the permit application.
Everyone loves Marineland.
With its earworm jingle. For more than 60 years, the theme park was a popular destination. But this year, it didn't open and started selling off amusement rides. The future of the park, like its water-bound inhabitants, uncertain. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Niagara Falls, Ontario.
Big banks in Canada are joining a coalition aimed at tackling fraud.
Make it look like the banks are standing up for the customers, but my experience, the reality is very different.
Why those who've been scammed say it doesn't do nearly enough to protect them. Plus, as the UN General Assembly meets here in New York, it is facing questions about its effectiveness.
We're living in a world where many member states simply don't respect the rule of law.
Canada's outgoing UN ambassador reflects on how to improve it and the role Canada could play. And the Canadian who will soon be traveling to the moon.
Canada is going to be the second country in the world to send a human into deep space. And I think that's pretty remarkable.
Ian sits down with astronaut Jeremy Hansen. The National breaks down the story shaping our world. Next. The big banks are joining a coalition aimed at protecting Canadians from financial scammers. But as Sophia Harris tells us, customers who've already been scammed say what is really needed is accountability from the banks themselves.
A new anti-scam coalition, including police, major telcos, and the big banks, is pledging to fight financial fraud. The coalition's first plan of attack? Teaching people how to avoid getting scammed.
The campaign, like itself, is kind of insulting to me.
Bank scam victims like Jessica Fraser feel the coalition's efforts fall short because it doesn't address refunds for the victims.
They make it look like the banks are standing up for the customers, but my experience, the reality is very different.
In June, Fraser got a call from a man claiming to be with TD Bank's fraud department. The scammer told Fraser her bank account had been compromised.
I just remember feeling really panicked.
He got Fraser to transfer her money, $10,000, out of her account, assuring her it would be safeguarded. But Fraser soon discovered that $10,000 was gone. TD Bank refused to reimburse her.
They should have some kind of accountability. They're supposed to be the gatekeepers of my money, and I trusted them to safeguard me. And instead, I'm left carrying the burden.
In an email to CBC News, TD Bank said Fraser's case was assessed objectively and in accordance with our policies and procedures. CBC News has reported several recent stories where bank scam victims were denied refunds.
Really, banks are having a lot of trouble with customers making a big stink.
The chair of the Anti-Scam Coalition, also a bank industry rep, said the coalition will coordinate efforts to stop scammers before they can target Canadians. But this cybersecurity expert argues scam victims also need help.
I think refunds for customers should be front and center.
In Canada, there are no legislative requirements for banks to reimburse customers for fraudulent bank account transactions. Ottawa has proposed stronger protections, but no word yet on when or if Canadians could see change. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. Preparing for a trip to the moon, a Canadian astronaut reflects on his U.S. home base.
We just kind of take the flags off and we show up as humans just trying to do our best.
Ian's deep space conversation with Jeremy Hansen. But first, the United Nations at 80 and at a crossroads.
There was a sense of common purpose in 1945, and that, over the years, has gradually faded.
The world still gathers, but is the institution still relevant? In a moment, we will ask Canada's outgoing UN Ambassador Bob Rae, but first, Chris Reyes on the organization's search for identity.
As the United Nations begins its 80th session, a crisis call from its top leaders.
It's the member states that, divided, do not allow the UN to work properly.
At a time when the world may need it the most.
We are facing this perfect storm, underfunded, overstretched, under attack.
The UN is under pressure financially and politically.
We're in the UN's General Assembly Hall, where all 193 member countries have a seat. There's really no other place like it in the world, but this year, more than any other, the question that's being asked, is this institution living up to its core promise to save future generations from the scourge of war?
For that answer, we went up to the 37th floor of the Secretariat building to talk to the person in charge of a new and massive project to transform the UN.
There are many conflicts taking place in the world today. I think there are more individual conflicts than any time since the Second World War. We're not preventing them, and we're not being able to stop them. And that's a simple reality which I think nobody can deny.
To address that reality, the UN has laid out the UN 80 initiative, an ambitious set of reforms that include a $500 million budget cut for 2026.
We have to be more efficient, we have to be more impactful, we have to redesign our working methods, and we have to take a hard look at our structures.
When the UN was founded in 1945, it was never meant to be a world government, but it did empower the Security Council to deploy military forces. But the superpowers that hold permanent seats in the Council also hold veto power.
The draft resolution has not been adopted.
In the wars in Ukraine and Gaza, Russia and the US have used that power to block action.
There is a risk if they go on. That paralysis of the Security Council is a source of impunity that undermines our work.
As the UN grapples with questions of relevance and purpose, a reminder of the ideas that gave birth to this place can be found all over this massive complex.
Artworks and monuments that speak to the promise of peace and the horrors of war. There's even a part of the Berlin Wall in the UN gardens, a reminder that divisions between nations do fall. And as you enter the General Assembly Hall, this quote from its second Secretary General, that the UN was created not to take mankind to heaven, but to save humanity from hell.
There was a sense of common purpose in 1945, and that, over the years, has gradually faded.
Jean-Marie Guillenot is a professor at Columbia University, but also a former head of UN peacekeeping. He says it's on those missions that he saw how the UN made a difference.
I had the frustrations of the Security Council, the cynical calculations and all that. But then I went to peacekeeping missions, and I saw the people I was meant to help.
In 80 years, the UN has gone from 51 founding nations to 193 member states, a major achievement that has its challenges, says Guillenot.
There was not enough effort to transform the UN so that it would be owned not just by a handful of Western countries led by the United States, but by the whole world. Much will depend if there is a coalition of countries that is built around safeguarding the UN.
Undersecretary Ryder says there are no guarantees reforms will work, but his message is this.
I believe it is the unique value of the United Nations that it does still command that convening power that the world so badly needs. The day that we forego the opportunity to come together and to dialogue and to talk, however difficult it is a day that we lose something perhaps irreparable.
From the Secretary General, with less than 2 years left in his final term, this promise.
So I'm not optimistic, I'm not pessimistic, I'm determined. I will not give up.
Okay, so lots and lots of issues, Chris. But, you know, it's true that many people still look to that building for leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this famous quote by the former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. It goes, "If the UN did not exist, we would invent it." And that, in a nutshell, is the frustration of this place. 193 countries trying to make it work because there isn't an option. Being here at the UN, I'm sure you felt it, you could really sense that. It reminds you that if nations don't talk, they risk the very thing that created this place. Global conflict that, in the words of the UN Charter, brought untold sorrow. Now, the world has changed a lot since then, and like many institutions, the UN has struggled to keep up. One positive thing, countries still show up here every year to talk.
They do. Yeah. All right, Chris Reyes, thank you. Thank you. Canada will soon change its UN representative. Earlier today, I spoke with outgoing Ambassador Bob Rae about the current moment for Canada and the UN itself. Thank you very much, Ambassador Rae. You are nearing the end of this term in November, and you have heard people on the outside say that the UN feels or seems ineffective. What do you think needs to change that perspective?
When we say UN, we mean two things. One is the organization, the Secretariat. The other one is all the member states. And sometimes we get those two things mixed up. I think what the organization can do is simply become more effective. It needs to be better in line with its real budget and better in line with what really needs to be done to get it to a better place. There's signs that's starting to happen more now, because actually nothing so jogs the mind than a massive cut such as we've seen from the US and many others. And so I think that's the first thing that needs to happen. The other thing is member states, we're living in a world where many member states simply don't respect the rule of law, they don't respect the charter, they don't respect the sort of foundational beliefs. And that's a real struggle. But the real strength of the UN, for all of its weaknesses and faults, the real strength of it is that it's the one place where everybody comes. There's nobody else that has the convening capacity of the United Nations when it's doing its job well. But it can always improve, and I think it's important for us to believe in the UN and want to support the UN and actually do a lot to fund the UN. We have an ongoing responsibility to make sure it's better run.
So in a way, the budget cuts, as you said, will focus the mind, like run a tighter ship, you think?
Yeah, and to stop duplicating it. There are so many different agencies, the alphabet agencies that everybody knows, that sometimes they all have a little tendency in their fiefdoms to do stuff that is in somebody else's lane and that gets in the way. So there's a lot that we can do to make the UN run more efficiently. The problem is we have more people in need, more people in trouble, and we have less countries that are really willing to step up. And so that gives us this gap between the need and what people are prepared to do. And that's a big gap that needs to be fixed.
You talked about the United States sort of pulling back in some ways budget-wise. We've seen it sort of pull back in terms of participation. What is the United Nations without the heft of U.S. involvement of the past?
Well, I mean, those of us who are a coalition of the willing as far as the UN is concerned have to figure out how can we strengthen the institutions. And by the way, the United States has not left. They've reduced, they've said we're going to refocus, but they know the advantage to them of having a stronger UN. And at some point, those two ideas are going to connect again.
Where does this leave a country like Canada, a middle power? I remember a time when Canada was called the Samaritan nation. You think about its work in Ethiopia. What's its reputation now?
Well, I mean, I'm biased. I've been here for 5 years, so I'd say the reputation is getting better all the time. That'd be easy for me to say. But I think the big point is that we've all had to learn is It's not what you do alone, it's what you do together. And it's our ability to connect with a lot of countries. And that, I think, is a strength that we have always had and that we've certainly been playing on very strongly in the last while, looking at how can we lead on Haiti, how can we lead on the issue of children in Ukraine, where can we pick our spots to be effective with other countries. And I think that's been a consistent thing that Canada has done.
A last thought here, your successor, David Lametti, is starting in November. What do you wish someone had told you at the outset of this, and what do you think he's about to walk into?
The UN is one of the most incredible, not just talking places, but it's one of the best listening places. The private conversations you have with people from countries that you don't normally talk to, or perhaps you're having a fight with. How can you use those personal relationships to make you a good listener? And I think that's one of the things that makes you a better uniter, if you like, or a better person who can work with others, is learning really how to listen. And I think for me, I think probably many members of my family would say that's still a work in progress.
Ambassador Ray, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Bob Rae is set to leave his post in the middle of November. He will be replaced by former Liberal cabinet minister David Lametti. Now tonight, Prime Minister Mark Carney paid tribute to Rae's time in public service.
Bob Rae has represented Canada at the federal, provincial, and now international level for almost 5 decades. I'm sorry, Bob, to bring up that, but almost 5 decades of stellar service. Bob Rae is a stalwart. He's a steady hand because he is always guided by principle. He is so often Canada's voice of conscience and conviction.
When we come back, a take on U.S. relations from a Canadian astronaut.
I have great gratitude to the United States for, carving out a program that makes space for a country like Canada to share our gifts.
The enduring partnership reaching for the stars again. Next. NASA's next trip to the moon is set for February. And when the Artemis II mission takes off, a Canadian will be on board.
Makes me super proud. Canada is going to be the second country in the world to send a human into deep space.
Jeremy Hansen continues a rich tradition of partnership. Ian traveled to speak with him at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Here's a peek at their conversation.
Thank you very much for sitting down and doing this. Here's a remarkable statistic, at least to me. In the history of humankind, only 24 people have ever gone beyond Earth's orbit.
Mm-hmm.
And next year you're going to join that group. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. The way that I frame that makes me super proud is Canada is going to be the second country in the world to send a human into deep space. And I think that's pretty remarkable. And lo and behold, we earned a spot to be the second country in the world to send a human into deep space, and we did earn it. Of course, I have great gratitude to the United States for carving out a program that makes space for a country like Canada to share our gifts. I think that's extraordinary leadership. It needs to be celebrated, and that's a great example of collaboration. And then on the other side of that coin is we earned it with our Canadian genius. I'm super proud of that.
It's interesting you talk about collaboration because I know you're in a bit of a bubble here at the Space Center, but you may have heard there's a little tension between Canada and the United States these days, mainly on the issue of trade,
yes,
politics. And here you are, part of a crew with Americans working at a facility in the United States. Do you feel any of that tension at all?
The global struggles are obviously, very apparent to me. I listen to it with great intent, something that, concerns me because I do believe, humanity's ultimate goal needs to be collaboration. And the 8 billion of us on our planet, that's where we need to always be heading, is how do we get to the point where we're all using our energy for positive things, helping one another out, lifting one another up. We are taking on some new challenges, and they're pretty extraordinary challenges. And it's because we just kind of take the flags off and we show up as humans just trying to do our best. contribute our gifts and help achieve a common goal.
A common goal that comes with risks. Hansen spoke candidly about how he and his family deal with that.
And liftoff of Artemis 1.
We flew Artemis 1 with no crew on it, but that was very different. And it was, there's a lot of automation on the vehicle, that's true. It requires user intervention. So on Artemis 1, it was mission control sending the cues to the vehicle, okay, now we want you to do this, and it'll go through its automation cycle. But when there's crew on there, the crew has to be able to sort of manage that automation, sort of like managing an autopilot on an airliner. But then you're also not quite satisfied with that when you're out 400,000 kilometers from Earth, that if something fails and you're not able to get the automation to do what you want, that you're just going to give up and die. And so you want some manual capability to try and save your lives. And so we spent a lot of time figuring out, what are we going to do if we lose communication with Earth, which is a very real possibility. Probably won't happen, but it's plausible that we can't talk to Earth and we're having trouble with the spacecraft. How are we going, what are the bare basics to give us a fighting chance to still be breathing and to hit somewhere on the planet and ideally hit the Pacific Ocean?
I was wondering how I would broach the topic of danger and risk in this interview. But you mentioned the word die, like you actually just almost casually said it in there. Let's talk a little bit about the risks involved here. How do you manage that?
I think like you do with, all the challenging aspects of life, there has to be some acceptance that this is a potential outcome.
Okay, if I may interrupt a little bit. Yeah, there are challenging aspects in life, but we're not getting into a spaceship where I believe the risks are far greater than anything I'm going to face in my life, for example.
And when we get in a car and you drive home, that's a risk. And we take that casually every single day. There are things that can happen that you don't control or you can't predict. And obviously I've had that conversation with my wife and my children. Still a little bit more work to do there. What I want most is for them to know when I launch, because that will be a very acute, stressful moment, that they're going to be okay. If we have a loss of crew on the mission, that it'll be tough, and they'll go through a process and mourning, but we're going to set it up so that they're going to be okay.
You don't feel casual about it, I know. You're very analytical, but you seem to, at least in talking to me right now, you compartmentalize things. I mean, the cameras are rolling, you're aware of that, but is that how your brain kind of processes this stuff in a very logical, sort of compartmentalized way?
Yeah, I think you have to. I'm a father of 3 kids, and there's just a lot of things, and I want my children to know that challenges come up in life, loss comes up in life, lots of people deal with this. There's a lot of really bad things that are happening in the world, for example, and lives are being lost. And this is a real part of being a human. And what's important to know is that, that'll be hard and challenging and sad, but you have to move forward. And that's just important for me that I know in my heart that they know that. That's what I need them to do if this does happen.
You can see Ian's full interview with Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen in the coming weeks here on The National. Well, up next, France's president trumped by a VIP motorcade.
I go to the French embassy. I'm sorry, President, I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's in frozen right now.
Who Emmanuel Macron called for help in our moment. As you know, world leaders are here in New York for the UN General Assembly, so there's a lot of extra security on the streets, especially when Trump is in town. And that is something French President Emmanuel Macron experienced firsthand. Macron versus Trump traffic is tonight's moment. A French delegation on a New York City stroll with their president, stopping to pose for pictures, as you do. Question though, how does a Macron cross the road blocked for a Trump motorcade?
If you don't see it, let me cross. I negotiate with you.
Well, you got to start with the cops.
I have 10 people with me. I go to the French embassy. No. I'm sorry, President, I'm really sorry. It's just that everything's in frozen right now. There's a motorcade coming right. That's why.
Okay, time to escalate. Nice to have the man himself on speed dial.
Guess what? I'm waiting the street because everything is frozen for you.
Strike 2 on the roadblock, perhaps, but since Trump is on the line anyway, Why not get a little work in?
But you know, after I would love if we can have a short discussion with Qatar and you on the situation of Gaza.
Oh, and as for the police officer, his NYPD bosses said merci to Macron for understanding. This has to be the most relatable thing for people in this city. Everybody gets blocked by these motorcades. Macron, that might be a new one, took him 30 minutes of waiting before he was finally able to get through. From all of us at the National here at the UN and back at home, thank you for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault in New York. Take care.